So this video is going to be a discussion about a book that I read months ago that I have not been able to stop thinking about, and I need to get all of these thoughts of this book out of my head because I've had enough. The book in question is The Fortress by S.A Jones. Not only is this video going to be about The Fortress, but it's also going to be about these types of books in general. So here's the agenda for the video. I'm going to start with a short summary and review, and then the other points in the agenda will make sense as we go along. So this book is about a man called Jonathan. So Jonathan is a bad guy. His wife finds out that he's a bad guy and exposes him for being a bad guy in very dramatic fashion. But John doesn't want to lose his wife, and also his wife does not want to leave this terrible man for some reason. So John agrees to go to the fortress. In this fantasy universe, the fortress is an allegedly woman-run and woman-populated society, and I guess they have like a side hustle of rehabilitating terrible men. I don't know. In terms of a review, there's really no plot. It's a bit slow. We're in Jonathan's head the whole time, and he goes through this ordeal, and it's kind of interesting, but not really. It's okay. It's a 3-star read, but I gave it less than that because of a specific thing that happens in this book, which is kind of the whole reason why I'm making this video, because I need to understand what the hell was the point of that. I don't get it. You would not really be missing out on anything if you didn't read this book or any of these types of books. These sort of Western written, women only, feminist books, you're not really missing out on much, and I'll go into why later on. So, that's where the spoiler-free section ends. Proceed at your own peril. Okay, so I want to start by talking about why I picked this book up in the first place. I have read many of these books before, these types of, women, society, matriarchal, whatever books written by Westerners. I've read many of them before and they've never done anything for me. So why did I pick this up? I picked this up because of the way it was pitched in the synopsis, specifically for this line. And it asks, it in question being the book, it asks what it takes for a man to change. The answer to that is apparently BDSM, and whether change is possible without a radical reversal of the conditions that seem normal. The answer to that, according to this book, is apparently no. Jonathan doesn't change, even when he is exposed to this so-called radical reversal. I am getting ahead of myself. Let me talk about the story in general, what little story there was. As I said in the synopsis, Jonathan is sent to the fortress after it comes out that he and his work buddies were engaged in some sort of weird, sexual assault culture of the female interns at work. During a work function, one of the interns is raped, and nobody knows who, nothing comes of it, justice is not found. She's expected to just come to work or forget about it, I guess. And so this becomes too much for her, and she commits suicide after Jonathan's wife stages a confrontation with the woman who was raped, as well as other women who have worked or currently work as interns at this office that Jonathan worked at. I think Jonathan was an executive. He had some power. He wasn't like a big shot, but he did have some power at the workplace. And again, he did nothing. There's a lot of him feeling bad about it, but you did nothing, Jonathan. So anyway, his wife stages a confrontation with these women. They tie him up at a hotel room or whatever. He is blindsided by this. They talk about how he has hurt them. And after that confrontation, a while after that confrontation, the intern kills herself. Jonathan's wife feels bad. Jonathan feels bad. And Jonathan's wife finds out that I forgot her name, I'm sorry. And she finds out she's pregnant. She obviously doesn't want to leave Jonathan because, love staying with terrible men, but she gives him an ultimatum. She says, I'm gonna leave with my baby, our baby, if you don't go to the fortress. And he goes to the fortress, and while at the fortress he is subjected to BDSM rules. Basically, you're not allowed to talk back, he's submissive, you're not allowed to ask questions, you have to do anything and everything that a woman tells you to do when you're in the fortress. There's no real plot really. We just follow Jonathan as he's in the fortress. He does a lot of manual labor, a lot of farm work. Random women of the fortress will randomly come up and accost these dudes for sex, I guess. Even while they're sweaty and working, a random woman will come and be like, it's sex time, Jonathan. And they're not allowed to say no. And at the end of the year, he leaves the fortress and reunites with his wife and kid. The end. That's the story. I want to talk about why are these sort of Western female separatist, female utopia, so-called feminist books, women society, matriarchal, why are they bad? Why are they always all bad? This book is bad because it doesn't really have a plot. It's focused mainly on Jonathan. And again, Jonathan starts the book the way he leaves. My hypothesis is that the main reason why these types of books are bad is because they are written with, a woman-hating male critic in mind. The worst type of person to pick up this book is who this book is written for. Instead of, women. Instead of women who want to read a book about a female-only society. The conclusion or the moral of these books is always, we need each other. We need to, we just need to get along. It's usually the moral of the story. And by we, I mean men and women. And the writer usually has to come to that conclusion or, get to that moral either by one, minimizing or sanitizing the problem, the issue of male dominion and male violence, sexual violence or otherwise, or two, by making these female-only societies incredibly stupid and nonsensical and ridiculous and ineffectual. I would not want to live in the world of the fortress as one of the women. Having sex with like really gross, grubby men who are in this before they've had the showers. There's a lot of sex in this book that happens while Jonathan is like gross and grubby and disgusting and like is working out in the fields. You know what I mean? Like, let him take a shower first. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Also, terrible men. Some of them are not bad. Some of the men who are like there at serving at the fortress or whatever are there as volunteers. Some of them are not there to be reformed, but a lot of them are. Jonathan makes a friend with someone who did an acid attack to a woman who rejected him. You have to have sex with those type of dudes. You have to be around those types of dudes all the time. And I mean, you could argue like we are around those types of dudes all the time in real life, without knowing, I guess. But also, like, it doesn't make any sense. You can get a sperm donor. It's implied that this is also a way for them to have children. Sperm donors exist. Just get sperm donors. And also, you can tell the sex of an embryo. You don't have to resort to infanticide. You know what I mean? Like it's just so silly, and you have to do that to get to the conclusion that hey, we need them. We all need each other. We need to come together. And this is not the only one. There's another one I read earlier this year. Oh God, what was it called? That one also doesn't make sense. That one did, however, have a nice idea of like preventing misogyny by turning respecting women into a religion. That was interesting. At least it had that going for it. But the society, oh my gosh, like so silly. Again, so we could come to the conclusion like, hey, we all need each other. We complete each other, I guess. And like, sure, you can believe that. But like, convince me. You don't have to make the female societies shit. Convince me of that without making the female societies terrible. My second critique of these types of books is just the lack of imagination. And this is not just in feminist utopia book. This was not a utopia by any stretch of the imagination, but you know what I mean. It's a problem with books about utopias in general. Hey, guess what? You can still have a lot of interpersonal drama and political intrigue and suspense in a utopia. It doesn't have to be boring just because there are some people who are not starving. Where are the books exploring how women would be with each other if we didn't have, male dominion and the male gaze and voice haunting us all the time? What would we do with each other? How would our relationships with each other be? How would we have babies? How would we structure our society? Let's step away from people thinking that utopias have to be boring to the next item on our list, Jonathan and his crimes. So, Jonathan does not change at the end of this at all. Throughout the whole process of him being at the fortress, he resents the women around him. At the end, he's like, oh, there are so many business opportunities for me here when he leaves the fortress. So he doesn't change. He spends a lot of time obsessing about a nonce, about a violent sexual offender who was there at the fortress with him and then killing him at some point. I don't understand what the point of that is, but we'll get to that. We'll explore the noncery in full later. Jonathan, like other men, but also people in general, but mostly men in our society, was not directly responsible for the rape, that happened to the woman who eventually killed herself, but he was complicit. He did participate directly in the culture of sexual violence that existed in his office, and also he didn't stand up for her. He didn't push for any sort of investigation or justice when he had some power, whereas she had absolutely none. None whatsoever. She was an intern. That's how Jonathan was involved in that, right? And he feels bad for that. He feels terrible for it. Throughout, he's agonizing over her and holds some sort of funeral thing at the end, saying, oh, her spirit is going to be buried here with the other women of the fortress or whatever. He feels bad for that, but he doesn't feel bad for the actual rape that he himself committed. He kind of glosses over it. During the confrontation with his wife and some of the other interns, one of the women, Yasmin, I remember her name, Yasmin straight up tells him, hey, I didn't want that to happen, right? He even has like a flashback and thinks about when Yasmin, again, was an intern, when he accosted her by the printers, talks about her body language, and then kind of glosses over it. Like, we kind of forget about Yasmin. He doesn't think about that again. I think that was on purpose. The indirect crime is obviously easier to think about than the actual crime that he committed. I bring that up, the point that he doesn't think about that. Think about Yasmin, doesn't think to apologize to her at any point, or any of the other interns at any point who may or may not have wanted the sexual attention that he gave them. Definitely did not. He doesn't think about them at all, ever. He doesn't think about apologizing. He doesn't think about making amends. He doesn't think, oh, when I leave here, I'm going to change the culture. None of that happens. And that makes me ask, what is this book trying to say? Is it trying to say that change isn't possible? If the book is trying to say that maybe this is not the method, maybe BDSM, maybe a BDSM society is not the method, then what's the point? What is the point of the book? The only thing really that changed was that it allowed Jonathan's wife, I think, to feel less guilty, to feel better about staying with this man. And maybe that's the point. Like, oh, he's changed now. He went to the fortress. He's no longer a rapist, or no longer somebody who participates in rape culture at the office because he went to the fortress. I can stay with him now and have my baby girl. It's fine. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what the author was trying to say. I don't know. Who knows? I don't need a book to spoon feed me a moral. But, I need you to be about something. If you're going to try and be about something, then try and successfully be about something. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me and I didn't get it. And I know it's not me because I did read other people's reviews. It's not just me. Now, what do I think it'll take for them to change? And, this is an old feminist argument. It depends on whether or not you think it's nature or nurture. If you think it's nature, that means that you think that they can't change, that change is not possible, that they are the way they are because of biology. Or whatever. So what does that mean for the rest of us? Well, that means if you believe that, then that would mean that we would have to restructure our societies to account for that. Now, if you think it's nurture, you think it's cultural, that means you think that change is possible. The answers are not in this book. If S.A Jones is to be believed, change is not going to come from a radical reversal because Jonathan didn't change. Truthfully though, I think that the only thing that will make things better is if we get like a dinosaur 2.0 sized meteor that comes and kills us all and ends our suffering. Okay, so for most of this book, I kind of got what S.A Jones, what Sexual Assault Jones was going for. What S.A Jones was going for. She was doing let them walk a mile in our shoes so they can develop empathy or whatever thing. I think that's what she was going for. But what was with the nonce stuff? Okay, so in this book, right, two things. We have a nonce. One of the bad dudes that Jonathan is here with is a nonce, a violent nonce who broke into a school and did something terrible to a child. And he's, Jonathan's rival throughout. Jonathan hates this guy. He's like, oh my God, I want to kill him, and he does. Right? But also, there's another storyline of a girl child who is a citizen of the fortress, and she is like 12, 13, 14. Prepubescent, and for some reason this girl child, her storyline is that she really, 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 really wants to lose her virginity to this, 38-year-old man, Jonathan, for some reason. That's her story. That's in this book. Well, what is the I have this has kept me up. I have racked my brain trying to figure out what S.A Jones was trying to do here, trying to think of, okay, is there a parallel between, is there like something she's trying to do between the juxtaposition of Jonathan obviously doesn't want to, he's not a nonce, right? But he does eventually. Thankfully, we are spared that scene. It's not described to us, but he does do it. And I'm like, okay, is she trying to say something by by having this and also having the violent nonce, the violent sex offender, what is happening? Is it for blackmail? Is this how the fortress blackmails people? Is this how the fortress keeps the men quiet, by blackmailing them, by saying, hey, we'll expose you? At some point, the mother of the child says, we don't say no to our girls. And I'm like, maybe say no to this? Like, I don't get you. Do you see what I mean about writers having to make these societies absolutely fucking stupid to make the points that they're trying to make, just to get to these dumb conclusions? I don't know, like maybe make an exception for noncery? This is ridiculous to me. I genuinely do not understand. I don't get it. At first, Jonathan obviously is like, I'm not gonna do this. He gets punished for it. He gets sent to jail. He gets haunted while he's in fortress jail because he said no and you're not allowed to, and he broke her heart or whatever. Ugh. While he's in jail, he hallucinates, the victims of the violent sexual offender. And I'm like, what is S.A Jones? What are you doing? What's happening? What are you telling me here? What is the point of this? Because really, the message that I'm getting out of this is that, hey, sometimes children do want to be preyed on by nasty old men. Sometimes they do. That's what I'm getting. Because, what is going on? I'm confused. Literally, I don't know, get a boy her age. Wait until you're older. Like, I don't understand. I think the blackmail thing, maybe it's the blackmail thing, but like, why would you use children for blackmail? I don't get it. So that really took this book from a book that was like, it's okay. I guess it's a book that someone wrote. Someone finished a book and they wrote a book and it was fine. That took it from that to, what is this? Like, burn this. Absolutely baffling. I don't understand. If you have theories, tell me. I was like, maybe to teach Jonathan a lesson. Everything that happens to him at the fortress is supposed to be a lesson. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's to teach him a lesson about how, the interns, they didn't want to have sex with the people they had to have sex with. Maybe it's to teach him that lesson. But like, that happens multiple times to Jonathan throughout his time at the fortress, not involving children. Random women he does or doesn't find attractive, accost him regularly. So he has learned that lesson before. I just don't get it. Here are my closing thoughts. This video was all over the place, but I just wanted to vomit my thoughts about this book. I'm sorry if it didn't make sense. If you're gonna write this type of book, if you wanna write a female utopia, feminist utopia, women separatist, whatever, matriarchal women society type book, maybe don't write this type of book if you're ashamed to be writing it. The dudes and the gals who get it will get it. You're going to be accused of being man-hating or being a man-hater, whatever, no matter how much you concede, no matter how much you preface things, no matter how much you soften your words, it's gonna happen. So you might as well just go for it. Just write whatever. I want more variety and interesting plots. You can have drama and intrigue with a woman-only cast. You can have suspense. You can have interpersonal drama. You can have political intrigue. You can have mysteries, right? Interesting variety, plots. We can't have the same books over and over again where the moral is, guys, we need each other. We actually need each other. Because look at the society. Who's going to do the garden if we don't have men? See, look at how they're starving in this book. I don't care if people say a female utopia is unrealistic or not. Fiction can be as aspirational as you want. Okay? Come on. Ultimately, this video, I suppose, is not just about this book. I mean, it is. I wanted to get these thoughts out of my head because I'm tired. I'm tired of thinking about John, and I'm tired of thinking about the fact that they forced this man to do what he did for no reason, for no discernible reason. This video and this book is an example of the pitfalls of writing for an audience that's gonna hate you and the work no matter what you do. So what's the point? What is the point? Anyway, I think John and his wife, Amalia. Her name was like Amalia or something like that. Oh my god, I finally remember her name. Maybe. Anyway, I think they do finally split up, despite them, reuniting happily at the end. Because John doesn't. First of all, he didn't change. Like I've said multiple times, he's still the same man. He still sucks. And also, he doesn't strike me as somebody who would be particularly good at child rearing or like helpful or like a good partner in any way when it comes to raising a child, specifically a little girl. I don't think so. None of the jobs that they had him do at the fortress while he was there were domestic. He was like pulling weeds. And before he went to the fortress, he was like an exec, like a lawyer or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Finance, exec, lawyer type, whatever, generic man job. So I definitely think that they get divorced maybe after a year and a half. Because they're going to reunite and they're still going to be in like that reunion high, reigniting those like early romantic love feelings at the beginning for like 18 months. And then once those fade away, she's going to wake up and be like, damn, this guy sucks. Also, if you know of just a book casually with like a full female women cast, it doesn't necessarily have to be feminist or female utopia book or whatever, just a book with just a lot of women in it, just casually doing stuff with a plot. Bonus points if it's a sci-fi and there are aliens, or if it's like a mystery or something. That's all I want. I just want women doing stuff.